Despite the fact that the Detroit Lions are now one of the most competitive and one of the most talented teams in the NFL, they still don't always get the respect and, dare I say, credit that they deserve. And one ESPN analyst decided to open his mouth and give the Lions an absolutely joke of a ranking for their offseason efforts. Stay tuned, everybody.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10-5 end zone touchdown Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, everyone, and welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. So, I say everyone for this episode because I want this episode to have as wide a cast of a net as I possibly can spread. I know obviously I'm going to have my normal viewers that are part of the Detroit Lions community, but I'm telling you this right now, I am literally going to have a lot of fun with this episode. The reason why is because, I'm just going to say this. I'm a Detroit Lions fan. I'm a fanatic. I love my Detroit Lions. I defend them to the death. But when I heard what I heard about this particular ranking by this particular ESPN analyst that we're going to talk about in this episode, I didn't necessarily get mad. I actually kind of chuckled. I laughed. And the reason why is because this kind of ranking shows me that when this guy sat down and came up with his, whatever thought process that he put together to make his ranking, he did not think it very well through. He did not think very clearly. Here's why I say this. You would think by now that folks would learn not to doubt the Detroit Lions. The reason I say that is because ever since Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes have become the head honchos for the Detroit Lions, the Lions have had this knack of proving the doubters wrong. Whether it was the freaking betting odds in Vegas and always freaking beating the spread. Whether it was the fact that the Lions in 2022 overcame a 1-6 start and finished the year with a plus 500 record and almost made it to the playoffs. Considering the fact that the Lions were not only able to win the division crown in 2023, but also have a deep playoff run and were with 1 quarter away getting to a Super Bowl. You would think people would stop doubting the Lions by this point, but there's some that don't. You would think by now people would trust Brad Holmes' decision-making process, whether it's in terms of his contracts, whether it's in terms of his free agents, whether it's in terms of his draft protocol. But still, there are people that want to give him flack. You would also think by now that giving the Lions bulletin board material would be something that people would refrain from because, again, I have said this before. The Lions are a team that don't listen to the outside voices. They don't listen to the outside critics, but they damn well hear them and they damn well keep receipts. The reason why I say this is because for today's episode, like I said, there's an ESPN analyst that like to do what I call open mouth insert foot disease. Because in this case, there's always that one person that feels like they know what they're doing. There's always that one person that wants to challenge something just so that way they can get, a moment or two of fame or whatever. And in this case, for this episode, for this topic, we're going to be talking about ESPN analyst Seth Walder. Now, who is Seth Walder? Again, I didn't know who the thunder this guy was before the article came out. Again, he's not like, Ian Rappaport. He's not like freaking Adam Schefter. He's not like Tom Pelissero. He's not one of those big-time, analysts. He's not one of those big-time guys that's connected to the NFL. This is a guy who is an opinion writer, an ESPN analytics writer. And he decided that he was going to release his offseason rankings for, the different 32 teams in the NFL and how he felt that they did. And he was going to give them a letter grade. Now, for the Lions, he gave them a letter grade of a solid C grade. Now, that right there, just on the pure face of it, the principle of it, is just insulting enough as it is. It's downright grotesque. considering the fact that virtually almost every other analyst that you can think of has looked at what the Lions have done this offseason and have said that they've had one of the best offseasons. But when you take a look at Seth Walder, he's saying that the Lions only get a C in his opinion. And in fact, that their grade is only better than 5 other teams on his board. So think about that. He's trying to say that the Lions' grade was like the 26th worst in the entirety of the NFL over the rest of the teams that he had. So I had to ask myself this question when I heard about this. Why? What the hell prompted such a low ranking? Was it the fact that, he thought the Lions weren't active enough in free agency? Nope. Had nothing to do with that. Was it because of, the fact that he had issues with the Lions' draft strategy? Maybe he thought they traded too much. Maybe he thought they didn't trade enough. Maybe he thought about the fact that taking 2 cornerbacks was too risky. Nope, nada. Nothing on that either. Does he not like the Lions? Because that's possible. There's bias. There's always bias out there. Couldn't find any proof of it, but you never know. The actual reason why this guy gave the Lions such a low ranking all stems from the decision to primarily extend Jared Goff. You guys knew that this was going to come because, again, not only am I a stout Detroit Lions defender, but I am a stout Jared Goff defender. Here's what Walder states in regards to the Detroit Lions extension of Jared Goff. He says, the most important transaction the Lions made was the 4-year, $212 million extension they handed to Jared Goff. It's not a move I can endorse at that price, and it has the potential to hamper the organization for years. That's the first part of this episode that we're going to talk about really quickly. Because within that quote, there's only 2 things that he got right. The one thing he got right was the actual generic contract details. Because yes, Jared Goff did get a 4-year, $212 million contract extension. That is correct. The other thing he did get right was the fact that it was the most important transaction that the Lions made this offseason. Those are the only 2 points that he got right. The rest of it, all fluff, all white noise, all opinion, and bad opinion. And I'm going to prove it. But there's still more to this that we have to talk about that, again, plays into everything that goes with this episode. Because then Walder explained why he has issues with the contract. He provided his justification as to why he gave such a low grade. He said this. He says, Goff is a divisive talent, but I think most would agree he's not a top 10 quarterback. And that offensive coordinator Ben Johnson deserves a fair share of credit for Detroit's offensive success. If Johnson leaves for a head coaching job in the near future, how effective would Goff be? It's a fair question. Oh, no, he did not. Well, I won't tell you this right now, folks. Not only am I going to be giving a direct response to Mr. Walder's question, I am going to directly on Twitter, I am going to @ him so that way he can see this video. Because I am going to be calling upon my regulators to be tuning in. I'm going to be calling on my regulators to make sure that this gets, pushed out and disseminated as much as possible. So with that, let's dive into this. First, let's analyze the entire set of statements and break it down. First and foremost, let's go back to the statement that I just talked about. He says that Jared Goff is a divisive talent and is not a top 10 quarterback to most people. Okay, let's think about this here. That right there is a very wrong statement based upon primarily the second part of it. Not a top 10 quarterback. Jared Goff is definitely a top 10 quarterback. I can prove it. It is easy to prove. Now, divisive talent, that one, he's definitely got right. Because there's still people in the Detroit Lions fan community that do not agree about whether or not he is a top 10 quarterback or whether or not he's talented enough to win a Super Bowl. That part I'll give him. But to say that Jared Goff is not a top 10 quarterback is absolutely sheer lunacy. Here's the reason why it's sheer lunacy. I've talked about these numbers. I've talked about this logic multiple times. So let's just keep it 100 here. Let's keep this right out front and in the open, and we're just going to just go at it. If Goff had been in the free agent market this last year, Jared Goff would easily have commanded the type of money that he got from the Detroit Lions, and maybe even might have gotten a little bit more. Consider this. This offseason, the Lions were one of those teams that everybody expected was going to sign Jared Goff to a contract extension. And the reason why everybody was paying attention to what the Lions were going to do about that contract extension was because there were 3 quarterbacks that were in the free agency market that everybody was kind of paying attention to see what kind of money they got. That was Geno Smith, that was also, Kirk Cousins and Baker Mayfield. Kirk Cousins got a 4-year, $160 million contract. Baker Mayfield, I think it was $110 over 3 years, something like that. Now, Geno Smith got the least amount of all that money. And I don't remember if it was this offseason or the prior offseason, but the point is, those 3 quarterbacks over the prior year or that offseason that we're talking about, those were the guys that just got brand new deals. Think about this, folks. I decided to say, okay, who was the guy that got the most money in free agency last year as far as quarterbacks were concerned? That was Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins got a 4-year, $160 million deal, $40 million on average a year. So let's also think about this as well. Kirk Cousins played in the same division that Jared Goff played in, since Jared Goff has been in the division, 2021. Kirk Cousins is considered a pocket passer, just like Jared Goff, but I would argue that Jared Goff is a little bit more athletic than Kirk Cousins. But at the same time, Jared Goff's contract has a lot of guaranteed money on it, just like Kirk Cousins does. So I said, okay, let's take a comparison between these two. When you take a look at Jared Goff really quickly here, these are the stats that Jared Goff has accumulated since coming to Detroit in 2021. He has the 4th most passing yards out of all quarterbacks in the NFL since 2021. He has the 7th most passing touchdowns out of all quarterbacks since that time. He has the 10th highest passer rating out of all starting quarterbacks since that time. Plus, on top of that, just to put this in perspective, Jared Goff in 2022 had a top 5 statistical season. Again, you're talking about a guy that was tied for top 5 or was just outside of top 5 in 2022. So there was that. Then he followed it up last year in 2023 with another top 10 season. So over the last 2 years, plus since you count when he got here in 2021, Jared Goff has been playing at a top 10 level at the bare minimum statistically. Then you take a look at Kirk Cousins. Now, Kirk Cousins, since 2021, has the 9th most passing yards out of all quarterbacks, has the 6th most passing touchdowns out of all quarterbacks, and has the 8th highest passer rating out of all quarterbacks as far as starters are concerned. Now, why do I bring this up? The reason why is because when you talk to most people about Kirk Cousins, what do they say about Kirk Cousins? He's a great statistical quarterback. He's a great regular season quarterback. But he absolutely folds under pressure. Kirk Cousins is the type of guy that will put up stats like nobody else's business. But when it comes to the qualitative measures, such as winning primetime games, such as getting to the postseason, such as winning in the postseason, Kirk Cousins falls under pressure. He cannot make it happen. He's never been able to make it happen. Here's the reason I know this. In the entire time that Kirk Cousins has been in the NFL, he has a 1-4 all-time playoff record. And since the 2021 season, since Jared Goff came to the NFC North Division, he's 0-1 in the playoffs. And that was in 2022 when the freaking Vikings won the division and they lost to the Giants in the wild card round. Unbelievable. Whereas Jared Goff has a 5-4 all-time playoff record. And he's 2-1 in the NFC. He's 2-1 since joining the Lions in the division since 2021. All that came last year. 2 playoff wins, 1 loss. Then you take a look at the primetime record. Jared Goff is 15-11 in all primetime games since, he started playing. Now, I'm including the Thanksgiving Day games in that. But if you don't include the Thanksgiving Day games that he's played in with the Detroit Lions, that number goes down to 15-8. But take a look at Kirk Cousins on the other hand. Kirk Cousins' primetime games, as far as win-loss record, is 12-20 all time. Then I said, okay, what about since, 2021, since that's the parameter we're putting this in? Jared Goff, again, if you include the Turkey Day losses, because I consider Thanksgiving a primetime game, because it is a nationally televised game, Jared Goff is 5-5. But I know most people don't consider it a primetime game, so I was like, okay, fine, I'll play that game. if you take those 3 primetime losses that I would consider out, it's 5-2. Whereas with Kirk Cousins, his primetime game record since 2021 is 4-3. So regardless of whatever way you want to put it, Jared Goff has more primetime wins than Kirk Cousins since 2021. And on top of that, regardless of which way you want to slice it, Jared Goff's record is either just a little bit below or significantly much better than Kirk Cousins. Now, why am I talking about this? Well, let's just consider this. Jared Goff's contract of a 4-year, $212 million contract extension, that contract itself does not officially hit until after the last year of his deal this year, because Jared Goff already has 1 year left on the deal that he signed with the Rams. That deal still has to be fulfilled and ended before the contract extension hits. So that contract that the Lions gave Jared Goff is not going to officially hit until 2025, which, think about it here. The salary cap this last year jumped up $30 million. Now, I don't expect it's going to do that again next year, but another $15, $20 million, that could potentially happen. You add another $15, $20 million of cap space to a team's, already just absolutely massive amount of cap space that they have right now. Because think about it, the Lions have $40 million in cap space, and their roster's sitting pretty. They're probably going to roll over a pretty substantial chunk of that cap into 2025. Add another $15 to $20 million on top of that, it doesn't matter what Jared Goff's cap hit is. They're going to have plenty of cap. And on top of that, the Lions created cap space when they gave Jared Goff this contract extension, because what they did is they converted most of his base salary into a signing bonus. So again, they created cap space for themselves for this year to lessen the burden up front. Whereas, take a look at Kirk Cousins' contract. His contract comes right out and it starts impact immediately because he's signed as a free agent. Plus, it's still a $40 million cap charge right away. Plus, let's think about this. Kirk Cousins is 35 to Jared Goff's being 29. Kirk Cousins is coming off of a ruptured Achilles tear. Jared Goff really doesn't have any serious injury history. Yeah, of course, he's had a thumb surgery in the past, but past that, he really hasn't had a whole lot of injuries to talk about. For crying out loud, you compare the two guys that played in the same division. Kirk Cousins got the largest free agency quarterback contract this offseason. Jared Goff easily destroys him. It's not even a contest. But yet somehow, Seth Walder wants to say that he can't justify giving Jared Goff the contract and that Jared Goff is not a top 10 quarterback, when since 2021, the numbers certainly prove that he is. And on top of that, compared to the highest paid free agent quarterback in the offseason this year, Jared Goff, in terms of playoff record, primetime record, and every other measurable statistic you can measure, is either on the same page or substantially better. But again, I'm going to keep going with this because, again, he says he can't justify Goff being paid what he's being paid. Really? You can't justify it. Think about this. Jared Goff is the first Lions quarterback to win a division crown for the Lions since 1993. He is the first quarterback since 1991 to win a playoff game for the Detroit Lions. He is the first Lions quarterback since 1957 to win 2 consecutive playoff games for the Lions. He is the first quarterback since 1991 to get the Lions to an NFC Conference Championship game appearance, the second of their entire franchise history. He's the first quarterback since 1991 to get the Lions to 12 wins in a season. He has the third most wins by quarterback in the NFL since 2017, behind only Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. He has the second highest QB rating in the NFL since 2022, only behind Patrick Mahomes. And on top of that, this is not technically a record, but it's still impressive all the same. He has the third most consecutive attempts in NFL history without an interception. You're going to tell me that Jared Goff getting the contract that he got, you can't find a single reason out of all those points that I just brought up, all those reasons I just brought up, to justify paying him what he got paid. That to me makes literally no sense. Because also, let's think about this. How many quarterbacks currently in the NFL that are starting quarterbacks have been to a Super Bowl? Not won a Super Bowl, just been to a Super Bowl. I'd be willing to bet that maybe it's 10? Maybe? So Jared Goff is 1 out of 30% of quarterbacks in the NFL, maybe, that have actually been to a Super Bowl. because it's substantially less if you want to talk about who's actually won a Super Bowl. And just think about this on top of that. Add a little more cherry on top of it. All of those reasons that I just gave, he can't justify why Jared Goff got paid what he got paid. But think about it. Jared Goff's not even the highest paid quarterback in the NFL right now. That belongs to Trevor Lawrence and to Joe Burrow. Trevor Lawrence, let's see. What has Trevor Lawrence done so far in the NFL? Trevor Lawrence has 1 playoff win to Jared Goff's 5. Jared Goff has got 3 division titles between the Rams and the Lions. And again, a division title with the Lions, heavy emphasis on that. Whereas Trevor Lawrence only has 1 division title. And when you take a look at Trevor Lawrence's career stats with the Jaguars, his stats are pretty much on pace, almost perfectly identical to Daniel Jones's stats. Daniel Jones is one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the NFL. But yet, wait a minute here, Trevor Lawrence just got paid a 5-year, $275 million contract with $55 million on average a year. But yet somehow Jared Goff, who's been to a Super Bowl, 2 conference championship game appearances, won multiple division titles, has won playoff games for the Detroit Lions, he doesn't deserve that contract. Yeah, I thought that's what that sounded like. That sounds really ridiculous. Then you take a look at Joe Burrow, who's definitely a little bit more on the comparative side for Jared Goff. Joe Burrow's been to a Super Bowl. He's lost a Super Bowl just like Jared Goff. But Joe Burrow's only been to 1 conference championship game appearance in the AFC. Goff's been to 2. Joe Burrow is injury prone. Joe Burrow has had ACL tears. He's now got ligament damage in his throwing wrist. He's admitted that he's had concussions in the past. I mean, for crying out loud, Joe Burrow might just become the next Andrew Luck and have to retire early. And then on top of that, take a look at the Bengals offense. They lost Joe Mixon this offseason. They lost Tyler Boyd. Their offseason is starting to be their offense is starting to be depleted. And then finally, again, Joe Burrow only has 2 division titles with the Bengals. Jared Goff has 3 overall, and again, 1 with the Detroit Lions. And like I said, the Lions hadn't won a division title since 1993, folks. Oh, and by the way, like I said, Jared Goff is not even the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. And he's definitely probably not even going to be in the top 5 probably by the end of this year or next year because, wait a minute here, you still have Dak that's wanting a $60 million on average a year contract that he doesn't deserve. You have Tua Tagovailoa who's wanting to get paid more than Jared Goff when he doesn't deserve it because Tua's playoff record is 0-2, and up until this year, Tua was a freaking China doll. And then you have Jordan Love, who's literally played only a half a season, really, of good football, but yet the Packers are wanting to herald him as the next franchise guy. So it's like you got 3 more guys out there that are wanting deals that are at or better than what Jared Goff got, and yet none of them have the same kind of career accomplishments that Jared Goff has. Think about how ridiculous that sounds when you put that in comparison, you put that in perspective with what Jared Goff has done, what Walder is trying to say here. But then finally, we have to get to the whole perspective of Ben Johnson deserving a share of the credit. Now again, surprisingly, I agree with Walder on this. I do agree that Ben Johnson does deserve a share of the credit. But it has to, again, be kept in the correct perspective. I would say that Ben Johnson's share of the credit is probably about 40 to 35% compared to Jared Goff's 60 to 65%. Allow me to explain. Jared Goff has successfully turned around 3 floundering programs in his career. He helped turn around the California Bears in college. He helped turn around the LA Rams. He helped turn around the Detroit Lions. Of all 3 of those, turning around the Detroit Lions is definitely the most absolutely prestigious one of the bunch. But think about this. Jared Goff helped a young Sean McVay to become the golden boy of the NFL by making his offense work on the field. Goff took a rookie offensive coordinator in Ben Johnson with no prior playing experience, or play calling experience, helped turn him into the hottest head coaching candidate in the NFL. And then you talk about Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson has stated in the past that his success as an offensive coordinator is directly due to Jared Goff, and that he has come back to the Detroit Lions because of the fact that Jared Goff is still with the Lions. Oh, and then, by the way, Goff got Johnson his acclaim as one of the best offensive coordinators and, again, hottest head coaching candidate in the NFL, all while trying to develop Amon-Ra St. Brown, develop Sam Laporta, working on developing Jamison Williams, having a rookie running back in Jahmyr Gibbs, and having a rookie right tackle in Penei Sewell all over the last 3 years. And yet, think about it. the Lions had a top 5 offense in 2022, and they had a top 3 offense in 2023. Yet somehow this guy is trying to say that it is a fair question. And again, this is the last part of this whole episode I'm going to bring together. He says that it is a fair question to wonder if, Ben Johnson leaves, that somehow Jared Goff is not going to be able to maintain his current level of success. Okay, if that's a fair question, then I got a question for you, Mr. Walder. If Goff helped turn around 3 different programs, California Bears, LA Rams, and the Detroit Lions, think about this, because I guarantee you probably didn't do your research on this, but I did. With the California Bears, Jared Goff, when he started for Cal, he literally was dealing with a new head coach in Sonny Dukes, who took over for the Cal Bears in 2013. They both started at the exact same time. Now, Sonny Dukes might not have been a rookie head coach at the time, but it was his first year with the team. Helped turn that around. In 2017, Sean McVay was a rookie head coach. Helped, like I said, get his offense off the ground. Helped make him into one of the best young head coaches in the NFL. But again, no head coaching experience. Was a rookie head coach. And then in 2021, even though Campbell had interim head coach experience, it was not the same. It is not the same as being the actual guy that everybody holds you accountable to. Everybody holds you in charge. So over the 3 programs that Jared Goff has helped turn around, he has had to either deal with guys who were brand new to the job that they were coming into, or they had no prior experience really as being head coaches. But it doesn't stop there. Think about this. When Jared Goff was with the Rams in 2017, he also had a rookie offensive coordinator in Matt LaFleur. Yes, that Matt LaFleur, who's the head coach of the Green Bay Packers. Prior to that, the only offensive coordinator experience that LaFleur had was in Division II college ball. So Jared Goff, with a rookie head coach and with a rookie offensive coordinator in 2017, won the division for the Rams and had a turnaround from 4-12 to 11-5 in one season. Oh, and by the way, like I said, Ben Johnson was a rookie offense coordinator in 2022. Oh, yeah, that's right. The Lions had a top 5 offense that year, a top 3 offense in 2023, got to the freaking conference championship game, won 2 playoff appearances. Jared Goff has been a top 10 statistical quarterback since 2021 with the Detroit Lions. So here comes my question for you, Mr. Walder. Since you think that your question is a fair question, here's my fair question for you. If Jared Goff was able to do all of that over the last, 10 years that he's been playing football between college and the NFL, what makes you think that if Ben Johnson were to leave, that he couldn't do it again? What makes you think he couldn't do it again? You don't think that the Lions might not promote somebody within their own organization to take over for Ben Johnson, like, maybe Tanner Estrain, or maybe his quarterback coach, Mark Brunell, of which he has a rapport with? You don't think that Jared Goff couldn't do it again? But yet you're trying to say that the reason why the Lions got such a poor offseason grade is because of a contract that even Jared Goff is not the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. Jared Goff has much more success than the other guys around him, or equal success compared to other guys around him that are getting paid the exact same thing. You want to know what I call this kind of ranking? I call it a ranking of which he's just trying to make a whole bunch of noise and trying to, again, have the focus be put on him, because it makes no literal sense. We're talking dollars to donuts here. The reason why I say that is because everybody wants to talk about Brad Holmes' genius and how Brad Holmes is one of the best GMs in the NFL. So let me ask you this question. You didn't have a problem with the Penei Sewell contract. You didn't have a problem with the Amon-Ra St. Brown contract. So what's your problem with the Jared Goff contract? Do you not trust Brad Holmes' ability to know the difference between a good quarterback and an average quarterback? Do you not know that freaking Brad Holmes has said that Jared Goff is a top quarterback, that he deserves to be paid like a top quarterback, that he has been the starting franchise quarterback since he got traded and not the bridge quarterback that virtually every NFL analyst wanted to say he was going to be from the word go? I would think by now you guys would stop doubting Jared Goff and you would start trusting Brad Holmes' decision-making process and stop coming out with these ridiculous rankings just so that way you can get your 5 minutes of fame. Just saying. But having said that, I'm going to end this episode and say thank you all for watching in another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode. Also encourage y'all to do one of these three things: like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If by chance you subscribed in the past, you forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and not had a chance to do so, I highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode. I also encourage y'all to do one of these three things: like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If by chance you subscribed in the past, you forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and not had a chance to do so, again, highly encourage y'all to subscribe, but I also encourage y'all, please, make sure you hit that bell notification icon at the bottom of the page. That way you guys never miss any more content I push out. Also encourage y'all to share the content with your Lions friends and family members. Share here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you can. The more we share it, the greater the channel grows, the greater the channel spreads. And with that being said, everybody, I hope you all had a great day. Hope you all got something in your life that makes you happy, makes you smile. God bless, and until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.